All right, welcome everyone. My name is Andy Crisafulli, the athletic director at Dartmouth High School, and I appreciate everyone coming on to tonight's Zoom call about our preseason boys basketball meeting. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important nights of our season because it does allow us to share very important information, about policies and procedures within our athletic department. It also we'll talk about sports specific items that directly relate to you on a daily basis. I congratulate people that are on this call of being a part of earning their way onto our boys basketball program, and we are really excited for this upcoming winter season. So I am joined tonight with Nick Simonetti, who is our varsity boys basketball coach. When we get to his portion of the presentation, we'll allow Coach Simonetti to introduce his coaching staff, who is also with us tonight. And they will, like I said, go over the basketball specific items. I will be going over the nuts and bolts pieces of our athletic department. Okay, so we have our one Dartmouth standard within our athletic program, and it's really summarized within two bullets. So our student athletes, staff, and families are expected to be role models and positively represent our school and community. And second is do not do anything to embarrass yourself, your family, or our community. So when we do talk about the one Dartmouth, there are multiple prongs within our athletic department. There obviously there's our staff, our athletic staff, we have our student athletes, and we also have our families. And we have to bring a very high level of respect and be able to be great representatives of our town, whether we are participating on the court and competing for Dartmouth High School, or we are spectators in the crowd supporting Dartmouth High School. So please make sure that when we do attend games, go to games, play in games around our community, that we're positive representatives. All right, so our Dartmouth athletic department rules. On the left is our student athlete handbook. Now, this handbook can be found on our athletic department website, which is www.dartathletics.org. I ask respectfully that the parents or families and their student athletes read our handbook. And because all participants must be aware of our rules, regulations, expectations, and protocols. Um, the book itself, the handbook, is very detailed. In just a moment, I'm going to dive deep into three specific rules that we have that do come up periodically throughout our season, and they're probably the three most popular rules that do come into play. And those three rules are our daily attendance, our academic eligibility, and our bona fide team rule. Again, I will highlight these three on this call. So the first is our daily attendance. So Dartmouth High School starts school day at 7:30 and we end at 2:03. We ask that kids are attending and showing up to Dartmouth High School on time. It's very important that as we're going through high school to learn the importance of respecting the start time and end time of our responsibilities. And that again will build up throughout our 4 years, and then post high school, that showing up on time is a very important aspect of being successful in your life. So 7:30 to 2:03, in order to be eligible for participation in extracurricular activities, which athletics is under, you have to be in school for 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now, I'm not going to say we need to be in at a certain time and stay till a certain time, because 3 hours and 15 minutes can be put together in many different ways. There are some times that students will come to school, have to leave for an appointment, and then come back. As long as they have their 3 hours and 15 minutes of seat time, they're eligible. Some will come in late, some will leave early, but 3 hours and 15 minutes is what we're trying to accomplish on a daily basis at minimum. Again, perfect situation, we are there for the entire school day, but for eligibility purposes, 3 hours and 15 minutes would be that target. There are excused absences that can be granted. They're very detailed in our student handbook for Dartmouth High School. So I would highly encourage you to take a look at that listing of excused absences. But again, if there is an issue, whether it are doctor's appointments, driving tests, for licenses or anything else that may put you in a situation that you'd be in jeopardy of that 3 hours and 15 minutes, we do ask for families and student athletes to be proactive, get ahead of it, communicate it well in advance so we can kind of walk you through the process of, seat time, or if it's an excused absence, the process in which you would to go about to achieve the approval. All right, so academic eligibility. In order to be eligible for athletics, we check grades every 10 weeks, so after each term. Term one just ended before Thanksgiving. We did our eligibility check then. We will do our next eligibility check right after Martin Luther King weekend in January. Student athletes have to they have to be passing 5 classes with a 65 average or better to be eligible or sustain eligibility. Now, the winter or term two report card is extremely important because it affects 2 seasons. It affects the second half of the winter and it affects the first 4 weeks of the spring. So this is a double whammy type of report card. So again, academics must be the focus. Luckily and fortunately, at Dartmouth High School, we have very few students who become academically ineligible. Our students do a great job within the classroom, but again, that is our academic standing, and it will be standard, and it will be checked again in mid-January. And finally, the bona fide team rule. And basically what that rule is Dartmouth High School athletics is top priority in the athletic world, in your athletic world within your student athlete and your family, meaning Dartmouth High School has to be top priority. All of the practices and or games must be attended on a daily basis before you would go on and possibly compete on a different team in a sport that is recognized by the MIAA. The example that I can give you is you're a boys basketball player, okay, but you also play travel indoor soccer. And in order to be able to compete or participate in travel indoor soccer, all of your responsibilities to Dartmouth High School athletics have to be fulfilled that specific day before you would move on to be with another team. Now, if a student athlete is found in a violation of that rule, so we have a Saturday morning practice, student athlete doesn't attend the Saturday morning practice, instead they go to the indoor soccer tournament, they would be in violation. So first step for violation penalty would be 1 game suspension. And if it happens again in that specific season, then it would be an additional game plus ineligibility for the state tournament. So again, if you do have any bona fide team rule questions, please reach out to me directly. And again, we can communicate with you as to how we will go about handling these situations. All right, so communication. One of the things that we pride ourselves at Dartmouth High School within our athletic program is I feel as though we communicate very well. There are 4 different ways that we will communicate with families. First is our website, which is dartathletics.org. Okay, it was actually just renewed or redone and re-updated during the summer months. So our goal is to have it as a one-stop shop for Dartmouth High School athletics. Uh, on that website, you will see staff contacts. So you'll see, my email address and phone number, all of our coaches' email addresses. Dolores Constelletti, who is our athletic department secretary, has her contact and her phone number. Kathy Thornton, who's our athletic trainer, has her contact number and school phone number. So again, staff contacts can be found on that website. We also have the online calendar. It's actually the picture in the top left. About 3 or 4 years ago, we incorporated this, which we feel as though has been a very valuable tool for communication for families. And we have all our practices and games within that Google Sheet. And the coaches do a fantastic job of keeping it up to date. As we sit right now, um, all all practices and games have been inputted for the entire season as we sit right now. So yes, there very well could be changes due to weather. There could be changes with games. We could add a practice in, take a practice out. That will all be communicated, and it will all be found on this Google online calendar. Okay. Schedules can also be, or game schedules can also be found on dartathletics.org, bus times, team rosters, and so much more. And if you haven't visited that website, I highly encourage you to take a few minutes to take a look. I think you'd be very impressed as to how much information is on there. And like I said, our goal is to make it a one-stop shop. All right, our second bullet down is Parent Square. Parent Square is a communication program that our school department has adopted for both academics and extracurricular activities, which again, athletics falls under. And what we love the most about Parent Square, it has the most up-to-date information with families, with email addresses, phone numbers, so on and so forth. And it's very easy for us to send out messages, notifications, and we do ask for our students to download what they call Student Square, which is under the umbrella of Parent Square. It's an app that they can have on their phone, along with parents. Downloading Parent Square is an app that they can have on their phone, that when communications are sent out, it will go, it'll have a notification on your phone. And there is one additional step that I'm hoping that we take once the New Year's passes, in which there's a way that student athletes can add their cell phone numbers into the app and not only get notifications on the app, but also receive a text message a notification through the app. So again, that's something, that extra step we're hoping to take after New Year's, but Parent Square is a phenomenal tool. I know that Coach Simonetti will talk a little bit more about how basketball will be incorporating or using it, but I use it extensively within athletics to communicate with families. We have our newsletter, which is the bottom right-hand corner between the lines. We try to put a newsletter out every month, month and a half. We're actually due for a new one to be communicated very soon. We spend a lot of time on putting in a lot of information into these newsletters. So I respectfully ask that when we do send them out, please take the time to read through them because, like I said, the information we provide is so important for a successful season. And then finally, Twitter, or X, as it's now called, we use as a social media app to celebrate our teams, our scores for varsity level, celebrate our student athletes for certain accomplishments, and that matter. So again, these are the 4 ways that we'll communicate as a department to families. All right, so medical, anything that has to do with medical within the Dartmouth High School athletic department is handled by our athletic trainer, Kathy Thornton. She is contracted through South Coast Hospitals. Her contact information is on this slide, Kathleen Thornton at dartmouthschools.org. Kind of rewinding back a few seconds ago when we talk about Parent Square, if you we sent a notification out last week or week and a half ago that Kathy was selected as the athletic trainer of the year in the state of Massachusetts, and that is such a great accomplishment for someone who was so deserving of recognition. So we will be celebrating that award with Kathy in the month of March at a banquet. But again, we are so lucky and fortunate to have her working with our student athletes and families. So Kathy covers sicknesses, injuries, treatments, clearances, physicals, head injury protocols, and return to play, sway testing. So anything medical is the responsibility of Kathy. So what I will ask for families to do is, if you do have any medical questions or anything that comes up during the season, with a medical situation, please feel free to contact Kathy directly. Because if you're to contact me or contact Mrs. Consoletti, the first thing we'll do is forward the message to Kathy. So you can directly contact her with anything medical. What I would encourage families to do is, if a student athlete sustains an injury, a sprained ankle, a possible broken finger or anything that is not really high level catastrophic, reach out to Kathy and have her spend a little bit of time evaluating the injury. And I'll give you an example: a sprained ankle, may be able to be treated by Kathy without you having to go to the emergency room or the walk-in or your primary care or an orthopedic. She works hand in hand with all of those doctors. So again, it may save you time. It definitely save you a little bit of money. But for some of those, everyday injuries, strains, sprains, in that matter, I would highly encourage you to reach out to Kathy, to get a little bit of guidance, from her end. All right, so conflict resolution. We have a chain of command that is set in place that is detailed in our athletic handbook. One of the things that we try to accomplish within our athletic program in the 4 years that your student athlete will hopefully be participating is foster the skills that if a student athlete has an issue, has a problem, is frustrated about something, building the skills of the student athlete approaching the coach respectfully and having that conversation, really to advocate for themselves. That is such an important skill for our student athletes to learn through high school, so that when they do graduate and they go on to whatever their next adventure is, they have those soft skills to be able to approach someone who is a person of authority or a boss or of a college professor, and be able to have that honest conversation in a respectful way and advocate for themselves. So we do ask that if there are any issues, we're going to try to address it at the lowest level, which would be student athlete coach. And again, we have a formal chain of command and a process that we must follow that's very detailed in our athletic handbook. So a second bullet is playing time and or status in a program. So as the athletic director, I do not involve myself with playing time, who or what student athletes are playing on what teams, what strategies coaches are using in the games, what type of offense do we run, what type of defense do we run, substitution patterns. I do not involve myself with any of those decisions. Those are coaching decisions that are made collaboratively with coaches on a coaching staff and well thought out. Now, is every decision going to be right? No. Every decision, there'll be a couple of decisions that may not work out, but please know that each decision that is made is well thought out and vetted amongst the coaching staff. So again, I do not involve myself as the athletic director in any of those things. Okay, I will never step in and tell a coach to play a certain student athlete, or they need to be playing more, or this person needs to be moved up to varsity. I do not involve myself in that. The coaches are hired; they're highly highly trained. They're very good and very experienced, and they will be making those decisions. And finally, the last one is effective communication can alleviate most issues. So again, if there is an issue, I know coach will talk a little bit about vacations and attendance. There are things that do come up during the season, but if you get ahead of the communication, you give it a much easier chance to have a positive outcome. So please make sure we get ahead of situations and communicate effectively. Okay, so fan and spectator expectations, always my favorite slide. So we put this into 4 bullets, and there's there's two that I really would like us to focus on. First one is games are school-sponsored events. All right, as a former athlete, coach, current parent, and athletic director, I do understand and appreciate that sports can be very emotional, um, especially big games, big situations, big competitions, um, deeper in seasons, and so on and so forth. All right. So I'm not ignorant to think that, athletics brings out a lot of emotion, but we do always need to keep in the front of our minds, whether we are student athletes, whether we're fans, spectators, parents, coaches, athletic director, that we are in a we're participating in a school-sponsored event. And when I say participating, it's kids on the floor and fans and spectators are also participating in the event. So we need to keep that in mind. Cheer for our kids and refrain from belittling, disrespecting opposing teams, coaches, and officials. I know, again, that can be challenging at times. Um, there are going to be calls that will go against us. There'll be things that go in our favor. There'll be some trying times and moments in games, but we do ask respectfully that we're refraining from the negativity and really being great role models for our students. The third one is coaching from the stands, and this is a second one I really want to highlight. Um, there shouldn't be coaching from the stands, meaning the coach has been at every practice, every game, um, is trying to develop talent, make decisions in the game, substitutions, so on and so forth. We don't need help from individuals in the crowd. Okay. And as a former coach, nothing was more frustrating than trying to coach a grouping of kids when other things are being said from the stands that contradict what I'm trying to do as a coach. So we ask respectfully that we refrain from that and allow the coaches to coach our kids. And then finally, game removal. Game removal happens when um, people are just being extremely disrespectful and belittling and doing all the things that are negative within in turning an environment to a negative environment. Now, it's one of the last. It's probably the most challenging and worst thing in my position. Game removals. I never want to or like to remove a person who is there to cheer on the team, to watch their student athlete, to there to support kids on the floor. But if there is a time where we feel as though the negativity will not fix itself, then we will remove people from games. Again, it's the last case scenario, something that we do not like to do, but we do have it in place if we need to. So please don't put us in a position in which we need to remove anyone from an event. Okay, user fees. It's $50 to play basketball this winter. You can pay that by check or online. Um, I want to say statistically about 90% of our families pay the $50 using the online link that pays into the town of Dartmouth. Please know that every week we get an updated sheet as to the individuals who paid that specific week. So that if we send an email to you on a Friday, um, respectfully asking for you to pay the fee, but you did on Tuesday, please know it does take a week for the town of Dartmouth to catch up on those fees. So, but I respectfully ask that we get this done and taken care of immediately, so we don't have to chase anyone throughout the season and then, possibly have to not allow participation if the fee is not paid. So please make sure that we take care of that piece. And then home game admission. So we do charge to attend varsity games. Um, so does every other school that we will be playing. Please know that we do start charging 1 hour before the varsity game begins. Now, our pricing is $6 for adults, $4 for students and senior citizens. Elementary age kids are admitted for free. And we have both the online ticketing option, which is GoFan, and a cash option for game days. Now, I will be sharing the link for online ticketing. Now, it's going to be the same link all year long. I believe it's 4 or 5 of the games are already on there in which you can purchase tickets for. What I do recommend if you are going to go the online route, which I believe is the easier of the two routes, don't buy too far ahead, because if weather does hit and we need to stop moving games, that piece of online ticketing can get a little bit messy. But like I said, the games are online and you're able to purchase tickets. Now, if you are going to purchase the tickets online, I would highly encourage you to purchase them while you're at home on good, solid Wi-Fi, because the gymnasium is really hit or miss with Wi-Fi. We're in the process of trying to boost that up for the season. But if you were to buy your tickets before you attended the event, drop them into Apple Wallet. If you do have an Apple device, that is the best way to go. Now, please note that all of the games that we do play the varsity level charge. Some do online ticketing, some do cash, some do both. So again, it depends where we're going and what their method for admittance is. So please be prepared either way. But when you come to Dartmouth High School, you will have both the online and the cash option to choose from. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of here and do questions before we pitch it over to Coach Simonetti. So is there anybody who has questions of any part of my piece of this presentation to this point? If you do, please feel free to unmute yourself and fire away. Anyone? Okay, Jody.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. So, just because I haven't met you before, I'm Asante's mom. I was just curious about, I know you talked about excused absences and things like that, but I was wondering about like college tours. So, if he has to be dismissed like for a morning one, is that excusable? How does that work?
Yeah, so Jody, what I would recommend is I would assume that you'd probably know about it a couple days in advance.
Yep.
What's that?
Yeah, usually
Okay.
yes.
So what I would do is in those instances, reach out to me, reach out to Asante's guidance counselor, and we'll be able to kind of lead you down that path so there's no issues on the day that he might not be in the school, but we have practice or a game.
Okay.
Okay, but
Thank
yes,
you.
college visits obviously are on that listing of excused absences, but just like anything else, communicating it ahead of time makes it so much easier to be able to navigate.
Absolutely. I'm trying to work around it, but some of them are further away, so I can't
Yep.
like make it there and back and all that with the guidelines. So
Yep.
I just want a clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the Alfonsos.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, what's up, Andrew? So I'm a dad of a freshman basketball player, and just curious. I mean, I hear stories from former players' parents. Do they keep track statistically of the individual athletes, whatever, shots, attempts, fouls throughout the years?
Coach Simonetti, do you want to answer that one more as a specific?
Sure, absolutely. So with this year, actually now we have a huddle camera in the gym. So before, we would kind of have someone film just varsity games, but now with having a huddle camera in the gym, we'll be able to have freshmen, JV, and also varsity for stats. And so with huddle, it kind of breaks down shots, rebounds, assists, turnovers. It breaks down all the little stats and it goes into really, really, really detailed. So it's awesome. So for like this year, we'll be able to stream freshman games. So now freshmen will then have film on Huddle, which will then be able to have stats for each individual student athlete.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm actually going to add a little bit to that. And I had Huddle written down next to me. And of course, I didn't look at my notes. So as Coach Simonetti said, we do have the new Huddle camera installed and it is working. It was a very long process to get it on there and going. Please know that we feel very comfortable with it right now, but there could be some growing pains over the first week or so. We just actually, to Coach's point, we just added on JV and freshmen so that we have the ability to live stream games free of charge, where in some schools they do pay for the NFHS network, which you pay $70 a year and you can watch games from all over the country. Well, with the Huddle camera, and I'll be sharing the link, you can actually go on there and be able to live stream our games. So in theory, when Friday hits at 3:20, the camera should be going on for freshmen. All right, and we'll keep our fingers crossed because that will be the first bite of the apple for us. But it's something that we're really proud to be able to offer. Our community and our families and student athletes. And the nice thing with Huddle is, kids can have free accounts and create highlight videos and all that fun stuff that they all thoroughly enjoy doing. So we're excited to kind of kick off this week with that. And like I said, knock on wood, fingers crossed. I'm hoping that the rollout will be very smooth. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is, for out of respect to everyone's time, is I'm going to share my screen again, and this is going to be Coach Simonetti's part with the basketball specific. Let me just share this and I will step out of the way. Oops. All right, Coach Simonetti.
Perfect. So I am Coach Simonetti. I am the head boys basketball coach at Dartmouth High School. This is my third year as being the head coach. We also have Coach Braga, who is the JV coach, and we also have Coach Magnet, who is the freshman coach. Andy, do you mind just going to the next screen so that way I can
I'm sorry.
share the emails?
I'm asleep at the wheel.
That's okay. So right here is our emails. Like I said, so depending if your son is on freshman, JV, or varsity, our emails are right here. It's just basically our full name with the dartmouthschools.org. We also have Dante Ramos, who is the volunteer with varsity. So for communication, we will be communicating with families through Parent Square. However, we do encourage our student athletes to take responsibility. I know it's kind of a little tough with freshmen, especially because it's that growing pain coming from middle school, having now a little bit more responsibility of, communicating with their coach, now obviously communicating with, the parents. So that is kind of what we're trying to build. We will be using Student Square as well to communicate with the student athletes on each team. If a student athlete needs to miss a practice due to illness or any other reason, they must communicate directly with their assigned coach. I know obviously if we're sick, we usually tell day of. However, if we have a doctor's appointment or dentist, whatever the case might be, where we know multiple days ahead of time when our scheduled time is, please make sure we relay that a little bit earlier. And like I said, we want the student athlete to tell us. It's gaining that more responsibility. We ask that parents, unless there's a huge emergency, then please communicate. But we want your son to talk and communicate with us as much as possible. If you have any serious major emergency that you need to contact myself, please feel free to email me. So the practice and the game schedule, Andy kind of went over it on the websites. Everything is on the Dartmouth High School websites. The calendar, I update as much as I possibly can. For instance, we just added a freshman game that we will be playing next Monday. It's against Voc. So we actually switched some practices too. So on Saturday, we were supposed to practice. They will now practice on Sunday and have Saturday off. So that way they're able to practice right before the game. So if we can kind of look as much on there as possible. I try to update it a few weeks in advance. Obviously, there might be something that might have to happen, a day or two prior. But that is something that is changing just about as much as possible. Like I said, we communicate practice, games, when to show up. If it's a home game, we communicate it to our student athletes. Typically, freshman games right after school at 3:30, we ask the freshmen to typically stay because it's just easier. JV, we usually ask to be there right around like 3:30, right when the freshman game starts. And then same thing for varsity, we usually ask to be around like 5, right when the JV game starts. It's just easier to be there on top of being able to support, the freshmen, the JV, whatever the case might be. We like to be able to support program-wide. So right now, varsity has 20 games scheduled, JV has 18, and like I said, freshman has 15 right now, and there's still room for more. Probably another 3 more games depending. So the student athlete expectations. We are expected to attend practice every single day. Like I said, if we're not able to attend, they must contact their coach directly, whether it's through Student Square, whether it's through email. Prior to, like I said, if there's a doctor's appointment, please let us know ahead of time so that we know. Don't be emailing us. If we're practicing on a Saturday, practice starts at 10 and we're emailing or sending a message through Student Square at 9:55, it's just not the best case scenario. If we have some sort of ride situation, I know freshmen, it can be difficult. Please let us know at least like an hour ahead for the student athletes. If my ride fell through, my mom or my dad has work, I'm trying to find a ride quickly. That's the best case scenario. Like I said, if we're sending a message 5 minutes before, it's just, we might be unprepared. And that way our coaches know too, in terms of practice plan. Whether we're freshmen, JV, varsity, Andy kind of touched on this to start. We are representing Dartmouth High School, the basketball program itself, and the town in our families. So, we're making sure we're not swearing, not doing anything, in school to get us in trouble. We are representing the town itself. This last piece can be a little touchy sometimes. If a student athlete misses practices or a game due to vacation, they typically will face a penalty equal to the number of practices or games missed. It kind of will be, I will ultimately make the final decision of kind of what happens. Typically in the past, some student athletes might miss 1 game, and then when they get back, they'll miss a game as well. If we are going on vacation, please communicate that to their coach immediately. So that way we can plan, that we can kind of get ahead of the ball. I think that's best case scenario. Parent expectations, Andy kind of touched on this as well too. Freshman, JV, varsity, wherever it might be, we ask all parents to remain as supportive, as possible. We understand emotions can run high during the games, but it's important to always remember to be respectful towards the refs, the coaches, the players, and everyone that's attending in the gym. Let's keep the focus on positivity, sportsmanship, and making sure we all enjoy the game. That's the major part of this program. We are trying to build something, program wide. We want to be supportive as possible. Like I said, having the JV, the sophomores, juniors at the freshman game supporting and cheering, having varsity at the JV game supporting and cheering. So program wide, we want to be successful on and off the court. As your student athlete grows and matures, it's important that we help them take on more responsibility. I've kind of touched on this a lot. Outside of any emergencies, kind of going back, I encourage parents to allow their student athletes to let them lead in communication with their coach. So same thing, email, Parent Square, whatever it might be. Please allow them to kind of build that maturity. They're growing, they're young adults. Freshmen, I know it's a little tough. They're 15 years old, 14 years old. But allowing them to now start communicating and starting to advocate for themselves a little bit more. I think that's exactly what we want, growing as a sophomore, junior, senior. As they move on, that's what we're really looking for in the program. Commitments, same thing, touching on, we have to attend every practice, every game, regardless weekend or not. I want to say this past Sunday, we had pretty good attendance for our freshmen, our JV levels for practice. Varsity, we had a scrimmage, which we had good attendance for. So, just being able to, same thing, communicate. I know it's tough sometimes on Saturday or Sunday mornings to kind of, like I said, rides could be difficult for freshmen, but just making sure we're committed and we're trying to be present as much as possible. So if you have any questions regarding that, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can help clarify.
Okay. Thank you, Coach. Any questions for Coach Simonetti? Nice job, Coach Simonetti.
All right, there we go.
So, if there are any, additional questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes after the call, just in case, Anyone might not want to ask it in the the larger group. Please know that when you do travel to different venues, um, the one thing I want you to keep in the front of your mind is I believe personally that we do everything in our power to do things the right way. Um, you might not see that in all other places, and I'm hoping instead of that frustrating you, it would really be a positive thing in your mind of what your student athlete is experiencing within their high school experience. That we go above and beyond to try to do things the right way and to appreciate it more than get frustrated that another school is not doing it. So, with that, I will end this recording.